Hey everybody, I'm Two-Tone the Artist.
And I'm Mitch the Peach.
Welcome back to the Hills Are Silent podcast, where we chop it up about the games of yesterday, today, and the future. Let's rock. Mitch, we were out last week. Sorry to our listeners. We have busy lives on occasion. Sometimes we travel, sometimes we have people visiting us during the week, and it just so happened both Mitch and I were busy, but we're glad to be back. It really just gave us time to play some extra games, to come back to the podcast to talk about. So without further ado, Mitch, what you been playing, man?
Yeah, I've actually, while I was pretty busy this week, I have completed a couple games that I was nearing the end already anyway, and one was more shorter experience. So
Okay.
I actually got to finish a couple, which is always a win for me, because typically, as we've talked about many times, I'm usually just adding on to my backlog and just buying more games continuously or fending off those urges. But yeah, I actually got to put a couple away, finished them. So the first one I want to talk about is the shorter experience. I'll be quick on this one, but I want to give it its due. It is called The Last Campfire. And this is a multi-platform game, but I was playing it on Nintendo Switch, and I will say it's a great Nintendo Switch experience. It was perfect for me. I went back to Peoria for the weekend last weekend, my hometown, and basically, brought my Switch home with me, needed something to play. Forgot I bought it for I think I bought it for $3 maybe at one point when it was on sale. So a very cheap game, and it's developed by Hello Games. And for those familiar with Hello Games, they are mostly known for No Man's Sky, which they are actually still updating to this day, which props to them for continually updating a game that really had a very rocky launch, I should say.
Okay, before we continue on with The Last Campfire.
Yeah.
Did you play No Man's Sky either when it first launched or after the 1,000,001 updates that brought it up to the game it is today?
No, and honestly, I probably should have given it a try at some point because I believe it's on Game Pass now. So, I mean, that's obviously a place where I could play it without having to purchase it necessarily. But I've always been following its progress. Every time that they have an update or anything, I always read their patch notes because I was always just very curious because it was a very high profile rocky launch, because this was one that many people were super excited about because I think they had some really good trailers, some really good gameplay reveals when they had done it, but then when the final product came out, people were pissed. And so I always just kept in, just to check what's going on with them, and the fact that they stuck with it and actually create a really good product, I guess, that people are really pleased with now, that's a positive. I'm not super into those type of games. It's a very exploratory space game where it's kind of create your own adventure by, exploring the world that they created. Not usually my cup of tea, but maybe I'll give it a try one of these days.
Yeah, and I agree with you on that. When that game first came out, and yeah, the hype train was full steam ahead when that game was announced and all the press they were releasing on it. But when I first saw that game, I thought the same thing. I'm like, this is not my type of game. I'm not the target audience. So fortunately, I didn't jump on that hype train and didn't get disappointed because it really wasn't a game I was looking forward to anyway. But yeah, those games where you just live in them and just kind of do whatever you want and open-ended. I know a lot of people love those, but I'm much more of a linear story. Let me go through some story or go through some roller coaster ride of a linear campaign instead of me just trying to live in a world.
Right. Yeah, I totally agree with that. I'm very much the same type of gamer. I did put a lot of some hours into Rust, which is a very similar type of game, and I think if I am going to choose one where I dive in and do my own thing, it would be Rust. But yeah, shout out to Hello Games. I'm happy when people still put a lot of time and effort into something that was really rocky at the start, because some people could literally just release it flopped and they just never touch it again because a lot of times they're not going to make a whole bunch back by continually updating the game. But I think they realized, to save face and to really just show the fans of the game what what they really wanted it to be, they kept at it, and good for them.
Yeah.
But back to the last Campfire. This is the game. I believe this is the game that they created after No Man's Sky, and it's very, very different than No Man's Sky. It is a puzzle game, very primarily a puzzle game. You play as a soul named Ember, who is looking to free other forlorn souls who have lost their sense of purpose. So these forlorn souls, they look like they turned into stone. You find them throughout this world that they created, and essentially you're looking to light their fire again and give them purpose.
That's deep. That's very deep.
Yeah, it's very deep, and I was looking because I didn't understand the full story after I played it, and I read some stuff, just some fan-made stuff, and even got some quotes from the team, and this is what they say about what the story is. It says, like any good folktale, we hope to have left the interpretation of the story and message very open. We'd like to think that it is as much about what the player brings to the game as the game brings to them. And a lot of fans have kind of interpreted this, and I kind of agree after reading this, as these forlorn souls are actually, it basically shows, or it symbolizes depression or something. Like it's a game that is about overcoming depression and finding purpose when you feel that all is lost, which I think that's a very good a very good way of looking at it. And I think the developers left it open, and the fact that that's something that a fan looked into it as, I mean, I feel like that's pretty spot on in my opinion. They have some very sad undertones in like the entire writing, so it is a very like sad game. There's not much that's super uplifting about it, but it's a very beautiful looking game, really cool art style. The name Ember is very fitting because when you do save these forlorn souls and you relight their fire, it actually lights this campfire that moves you on and opens a door and moves you to the next section of the game.
Yeah. So I know a lot of people, when they feel down and depressed, they like to listen to happy music, watch a happy movie or something. But I've always been the opposite. If I'm sad and depressed, usually listening to sad and depressed music or playing a sad and depressing game has the opposite effect, and somehow that lifts my spirit. So this might be something I'd like to check out, especially if I'm feeling down one day or something.
I'm actually the same type of way with music and other forms of media, so totally can relate there. And another good thing about this game, it was a fairly short game. I only paid I think $3 or $4 on it, so wasn't expecting a super big experience, but I beat it in only 5 hours.
Okay, that's pretty short.
Yeah, a short experience, which was like perfect for me, chilling in my basement at my dad's, and like having a little bit of downtime. So I'm just chilling, playing that for a few hours, and finish it up here at home before bed. I was playing a little bit my bedtime games on my Switch. So yeah, overall, a really positive experience with it. I like what they did. I'm happy that this game actually is very positively received from the jump, which is not something that No Man's Sky had, but not as I guess full scale as No Man's Sky became. But
yeah, and
my only gripe was go ahead. Actually,
I was just gonna say, I see on Steam it does have an overwhelmingly positive review score. It's typically $14.99, but right now it's on sale for $2.99 on Steam.
Yeah, I think well worth it for a 5-hour experience. The puzzles are not overly challenging. They're I feel like I figured the bulk of them out without having to sit around and look at it for too long. But challenging enough to where it made the mind work, and it made my brain it gave my brain a chill experience, but also something where I needed to really focus. But yeah, overall, fun game. Only gripe about it was in handheld mode on the Switch. It didn't run particularly well. And for something that's not super graphically demanding, it was kind of shocking that it had some stuttering like pretty frequently when I was playing through it. So that's my only gripe. I'm sure maybe if I plugged it up to the TV, my Switch, it may have run a little better. And I'm sure it runs great on Steam or any other platform. That is the last Campfire. It was a good short experience, and my next one that I'm going to talk about was not that.
All right, well, let's hold on that. I know you and I
Okay.
both have a couple games. I figured
Yep.
we might as well switch off on it.
Absolutely.
So for me, I know on a previous episode we talked about how EA Games is shutting down servers for a lot of old games, including a lot of the old Battlefield games. So Battlefield Bad Company 2, and also I think Battlefield 1943, which was an Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 exclusive. So before the servers shut down, I wanted to jump in and play some Battlefield Bad Company 2 while I still can.
Yeah.
So I installed it on Steam and loaded it up the other day and just hopped in some multiplayer. So with any game that's old, especially ones that have been around, I mean, Battlefield Bad Company, okay, this came out in 2010. So yeah, this is a 13-year-old game. So it always makes me smile when I hop on an old multiplayer game and there's still active servers and there's still people playing it. So when I jumped into this game, there really was only 2 servers that had people in it. And both of them were about full. So it's 32 player servers, so each one had close to that. There was one server that was just your standard map rotation, and I kept getting kicked from it. It would let me play for a few minutes and it would kick me saying that I did not have the right version of Punk Buster installed. But I had the latest version. So I don't know what was going on with that. So I was forced to play on the only other server. Now my only gripe with that is it was the same map over and over and over and over and over and over again. And this seems to be a trope for old multiplayer games. It's like as the player base dwindles, eventually everybody just gravitates towards one or server, or maybe 2 servers that just play everyone's favorite map like 24/7. And like I get it, you want to go to like right to the best map, but man, why? Like I don't want to just, especially with this game about ready to get shut down, I don't want to just have my last memories and last times playing it just only being one map over and over and over and over again. And it always happens. I remember the last time I played Return to Castle Wolfenstein, it was the same thing. I think it was like the beach invasion map, and then that was the only thing people were playing. It was just out on repeat. But it's like, dude, part of what makes a great map is playing a crappier map and then coming back to it. Like you kind of need those peaks and valleys. Like you can't just be like always on the best of everything all the time. It just kind of become numb to it after a while. So why is that? Have you encountered that in any old multiplayer games? Like I know even Counter-Strike sometimes, well, like dust only servers.
You were literally that's exactly where I was going. Yeah, I make sure my friends and I make sure, because some of my friends would much rather just play like a few maps that are the good ones in Counter-Strike, but we always make sure we work as many as we can in the rotation that are, even if they're ones we're not super familiar with. We have friends who are like, man, I suck at that map, so like, I don't want to play it. I'm like, well, you suck at it because you're not used to playing on it. Once you like actually play a few times, you'll realize it's not that bad.
Yeah. But man,
yeah, Dust 2 is definitely a good example, because I'm sure people just play that over and over and over again.
Oh yeah, on Counter-Strike there's so many servers that are like Dust only or Dust 2 only. But yeah, Battlefield Bad Company 2, man, that is a great game. The multiplayer is as fun as ever. The graphics still look really good. And it was just a blast to just play this and unlock weapons and blow up all the buildings, because they have their real-time destruction where you can level every single building on the map. And as the match progresses, that changes the strategy, because maybe you were hiding away, or you were holding down a waypoint by hiding in a certain building, and then eventually the opposing team levels that building to the ground, completely destroys it, and then you have to find another vantage point to hold down that waypoint.
Yeah, it's classic Battlefield gameplay, and then that real-time destruction that became a really big thing around Battlefield. But it made me remember. I don't know if you remember the game that kind of introduced that, but it was called Mercenaries: Playground of Destruction. I'm
I've
not sure if
heard
that
of
one
that.
rings a
I've
bell
never
with
played
you.
it though.
They were like super big into that real-time destruction. Everything can fall apart around you, and yeah, Battlefield does that better than anyone.
Yeah, and it's crazy that they were doing it in 2010.
Yeah.
And yeah, there was a couple games like that. There was also Red Faction, Guerrilla,
Hmm.
where you could destroy
Hmm.
everything, and that
Good
was
one.
the whole gameplay was like built around that. But the thing that baffles me is I remember when physics first started becoming a thing in video games. It used to be like everything in a level was static. You couldn't knock a chair over or knock a table over or break a window or anything unless it was like really scripted within the game code. But then all of a sudden the Havoc physics engine came out and a bunch of game developers licensed that, and then you got people like Valve Software who built upon that with Half-Life 2, and basically that was the core of the gameplay in that too. And it was mind-blowing that all of a sudden all this stuff was reacting how it would in real life. And then, yeah, it seemed like after all that came out, the next natural progression was real-time destruction. And
Hmm.
you've got these games like Mercenaries or Battlefield Bad Company or
Crackdown, I feel like, was a big one too.
yeah, and it was awesome. And all of a sudden, I thought every game going forward is going to have this, where just every building is going to be destructible, everything is going to be destructible. And then it seemed like for some reason, even though the industry was heading in that direction for a while, it just veered off course. And then now you really don't see that in games too often, which is crazy because it's impressive to me that these games were able to do this back in the late 2000s and early 2010s, especially on
Yeah.
like PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360. So I can't imagine the level of destruction that the current game engines would be able to produce if developers actually incorporated that into the games. But I don't know. I haven't played the new Battlefield, so I don't know if they're even still doing destruction in their games. Are they?
I've not played it yet either. I can't even remember the last new one that I played, to be honest with
Yeah,
you.
I don't know. But anyway, yeah, this was really fun. I don't think the servers shut down until like October. So definitely going to play this some more before I uninstall it and say goodbye forever. Sad.
Very sad.
Anyway, that was my romp with Battlefield Bad Company 2. What you got next on the list?
Yeah, we're just going to since we've been on a break, we've been churning and playing games, man. It's been nice to have a week off. I'm glad to talk about these, and this one I'm excited to talk about because I've been playing it for a while and hinting that I've been working my way through it. But this one is called Final Fantasy VII, and this is the remake, which is on PlayStation 4 and exclusively to PlayStation 4. And I am so pleased to say that it was an excellent experience. And I always I love Final Fantasy games, and this is probably one of my favorites of all time. They did such a good job with the remake of this, but there's a lot to unpack with it because there are people that are a little not so thrilled about it in some aspects. So Final Fantasy VII Remake is a full remake of the 1997 Final Fantasy VII. It does change some of the story elements. It's actually only the first part of the seventh game, the original seventh game, because what they're trying to do is they're changing the story to fit a much larger game narrative, which they are going to put into another series, which they just released a new trailer of it today, which is going to be Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. So this is the Final Fantasy VII Remake. This is the first part of the story, and Rebirth is the next one that's coming out, I believe, at the end of this year. So, or early next year. So they kind of switched it up. It is Final Fantasy VII, but they did change some things story-wise and narrative-wise, as well as a few other things, as such as the combat. But before I go into the combat, the story of the game itself you play as Cloud Strife, which Cloud is obviously one of the most popular characters in all of Final Fantasy. He's a former Shinra soldier turned mercenary who joins an eco-terrorist group, which is known as Avalanche. Avalanche is trying to take down this Shinra corporation who's been draining the planet's life energy. And I wanted to bring this by you, Mike, because I know you have played some Final Fantasy. Does it seem like Square Enix always likes to tie in some sort of political statement or corporate takedown in a lot of their games? I feel like they're always, no matter how futuristic, what era of the world it's in, there's always some corporation or political structure they're trying to take down, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think that just goes hand in hand with art in general. Art is a good way. Art is a reflection of reality. And it's also a good way to put a mirror to our world in a way that makes us look at it differently, but oftentimes more honestly. And a lot of games do have political themes, especially if they're trying to make the game really grandiose, which I feel like Final Fantasy is always going for. And anytime video games have things about taking down big corporate entities, I always kind of laugh inside because I'm like, is this the developers working on this game like secretly trying to stick it to whatever bigger company they work for, like maybe their publisher or something? But anyway, I've played a lot of Final Fantasy games. Surprisingly, I never played the original Final Fantasy 7. I played Final Fantasy 8 on PlayStation 1, but never Final Fantasy 7, even though I know that was always regarded as probably one of the best.
I had not played the original Final Fantasy, but did a lot of reading because I had heard flack from friends or other people in the media basically talking about how the story was different. And we see what they're doing now with trying to create multiple games within these remakes, and then also maybe switch up the story a little bit so it can easily connect to sequels. But yeah, I've not played the original 7, but I have also heard that it's very, very good. Some people still prefer it over this remake, even though this remake, they really made it beautiful. It's graphically stunning. And I read, it says, every element has been remade using real-time polygonal graphics as opposed to the pre-rendered environments of the original.
Yeah, which was typical on PlayStation 1. A lot of those games, to get more graphical fidelity, it would be just the characters that are actually being rendered with static backgrounds that were pre-rendered. I mean, that's what Resident Evil did for its backgrounds in Final Fantasy and in many other games. And it worked. At the time, it looked beautiful. And if you were playing the games on a old CRT television with the low resolution and just the fuzziness, you wouldn't even be able to tell. You just thought that the PlayStation 1 looked amazing for its time. But nowadays, if you play those PlayStation 1 games on a high-definition TV, you can clearly see there's a separation between the background and the characters. It becomes way more apparent and kind of breaks the illusion.
Yeah, so I'm just very impressed by how they took these assets of Final Fantasy VII and completely remade it into what it is, because, man, the cutscenes are captivating. They're very movie-like, and the story is great as it was told in parts of 7, and I'm like super pumped now. It timed really well for me because they actually just showed a new trailer for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth today, actually during the Summer Game Awards, which was pretty cool. So it was nice that I finished it last night and then got to see a new trailer for the sequel coming out. So I'm excited to play that. They also did alter the combat a little bit, and the combat was a lot of fun to mess around with and do certain combos and whatnot. They call it active time battle, which is abbreviated as ATB. And basically you have an ATB meter that gradually fills up slowly and can fill up faster when you're attacking or landing certain moves or whatnot. And then once that meter goes up, you have 2 of them, so you can either You can either use it if you have 1 meter or 2 meters. Some skills that you use have 2 meters, and you can use both of them to fire maybe more powerful moves or skills. But also, if you use something like if you use items, or if you are trying to use some healing prayers or whatnot, like those cost ATB meters too. So sometimes like you get in a bind where you don't have enough ATB meter to either heal yourself, to maybe use a move that's weak to certain bosses. So you have to keep pumping the basic attacks like the punches and shots and sword until you can build up that meter. And it's a really fun like mix of everything I love about JRPGs, because it combines that third person almost like adventure style hack and slash a little bit, but also brings in more turn-based RPG stuff with using that ATB meter, because when you hit X to trigger you to do a move or to use an item or a spell, like everything goes in slow motion. So it's like I'm having to like go and click whatever I want to use, whatever I want each character to use, and then it hits slow motion. Then when I unpause it or I hit my move, it goes back into fast motion. Your character will use that move or use that item. And you're doing that while controlling typically 3 characters. You rotate between Cloud, but also a couple other characters like Barrett, and Tifa and whatnot. So it's pretty neat combat system. I really enjoyed it. Didn't get bored of it. Like overall great game. I could talk about it forever. But I'm excited, and it makes me like want to play another Final Fantasy now, because it's like, man, it scratched that itch, and now I want some more, even though I put 50 hours into this Final Fantasy.
Ooh. And when this game came out, I remember Square Enix saying what you mentioned, how they're going to split it into 2 parts. And at first I was totally cool with that. What upset me was when I found out that the second part was only going to be released on PlayStation 5. So I did pick this game up on PlayStation 4. I have not played it yet. GameStop was selling it for $7.
Oh, wow.
And this is crazy. It's crazy to me, because this game came out, and very shortly after it came out, it was the free monthly game on PlayStation Plus, which was awesome. But I was very shocked at how quickly they gave that away as a free game. And then shortly after that, it dropped in price at GameStop all the way down to $7. And we're talking like less than a year after the game came out, which kind of really surprised me, because this is a newer game that sold really well, and I would assume was continuing to sell well, got really good reviews, and for it to just drop in price so drastically was kind of surprising.
Yeah, funny you mentioned that. I was actually just I was reading when I was looking up some stuff about the game. It became one of the fastest selling PlayStation 4 games, which sold more than 3.5 million copies within 3 days.
Wow.
Which, I mean, that's in over 5 million by August of 2020. Like, so it sold really well. So yeah, very interesting that they gave it away, but I took advantage and claimed it.
Yeah, me too. And I think GameStop has since raised the price again. Yeah, just out of curiosity, let's see. It's always weird to me when a game drops super cheap and then like you go to look at it a few months later and it's freaking the price has gone back up for some reason. Yeah, now they're selling it for $20. So anyway, I was able to snag it in that window of time when it was only $7, because I definitely wanted a physical copy of this. But I have no plans of getting a PS5 anytime soon. So it would have been nice to have the complete Part 1 and Part 2 of the remake both on the PlayStation 4. And yeah, I'm sure it'll release on PC, and that's fine, but yeah. Anyway, it is what it is.
Because while it probably will release on PC at some point, you just see how far behind these games take to get a PC port. I mean, if you look at even like God of War at this point, while the first one's on PC now because the first God of War has been out forever, God of War Ragnarok still does not have any sort of PC date that it's going to come out, and no news about it dropping or releasing in there either. So who knows when this would ever come out on PC.
Yeah, and speaking of the first part of Final Fantasy VII Remake, It released on PlayStation 4 on April 10th, 2020. And then it released on PC in December 16th, 2021. So a year and a half later. It's a long time to wait for the PC version. And now I think the only version you can get is the Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade, which is it's like kind of like the definitive edition that they ended up re-releasing on PlayStation 5. It's got the base game and also I think like an extra DLC
I think it's an extra
chapter
side story or something that's not really super necessary.
Yeah. But yeah, man, I will check this out someday. I don't know if I'm ready to dive into that 50-hour JRPG just yet, but it sounds like a good game.
Yeah, it was amazing. I burned through it real quick. It was hard to put down once I got started.
Yeah.
What we got next, Mike? I know you've been playing one that I'm pretty excited to hear your first impressions on.
Yes,
actually.
And I'm actually gonna hold you and our listeners in suspense because I'm gonna save it for the next episode.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Give you some more time to put some hours into it and give a full impression.
yeah, I mean, I was playing it some more last night, and to be honest, I'm still kind of on the fence about it, and I just don't know if it's because I'm not far enough or if it's just not that great of a game. So I want to give it more of a chance before I really speak on it.
My other cousin, Drewby, he finished it and said very much the same thing as kind of you're saying right now.
Really? Okay. All right. We'll dive into that next episode. I'd like to know.
We'll leave it on that cliffhanger.
All right. So the next thing I'd like to talk about is, again, going back to GameStop. I went into one not that long ago, and I always gravitate right towards the PlayStation 4 section because that's the only console I really have right now, or at least the only console that GameStop sells games for. Obviously, I got retro consoles and older stuff.
Sure.
But yeah, I usually gravitate towards that section. But something told me like, hey, let me look at these other consoles. Like what? I know Xbox has the same games, but how are the prices comparing to PlayStation 4? So I went over to the Xbox One and Xbox Series X section, and yeah, the prices were very similar to PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5. But then I go over to the Switch section, and oh my god, Nintendo Switch is too rich for my blood. At least if you're buying physical games. I don't know how they are on like their digital store sales or anything like that, but just about every game, the cheapest games there were $20, but most of them were $25 and $30. And if you go over to the PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, Xbox One, Xbox Series X section, you'll find games for under $10. You'll find a lot of games for under $10, a lot of good stuff. And then on Switch, even the crappy games are like $25. So what is the deal with that? Like why are Switch games never dropping in price? And you as a Switch owner, do you see this? And what's it like on the online store? Is it the same thing there?
I was just going to go into that. Yeah, the online store is very similar to the retail experience for sure. They don't, for at least their first party games, like basically every first party Nintendo game, at most I see typically a 20% discount. You know, they're very small. They do one kind of cool thing, but it's still not even that good of a deal. But because it's Nintendo, it is kind of a good deal for them, their standards. Where on the online store they have I guess it's what they call a like $100 coupon thing that they do, and for $100 you can get two digital games essentially. So basically you're getting both of them for $50, which is a $10 savings on both of them. But like when it comes to first party Nintendo, like that's the best you get.
Wow, man. One of the examples I wanted to bring up was Zelda Breath of the Wild. So we all know that the latest Zelda game just came out. The sequel to Breath of the Wild just dropped. And Breath of the Wild was correct me if I'm wrong, that was a launch title for the Switch, right?
It was, because it was actually a Wii U title as well.
Yeah, so we're talking about a pretty old game here. And if we're just specifically talking about the Switch version, this game came out in 2017. And I was just saying that Final Fantasy VII, within a year of it coming out, it had dropped down to $7. And then now it's since gone back up to 20, but still pretty reasonable. Zelda Breath of the Wild, according to pricecharting.com, which is a great website, by the way, if you're into collecting retro video games, because it basically aggregates the average price of games out in the world. A complete copy of Zelda Breath of the Wild right now is averaging $40 for a 6-year-old game that is sold millions of copies. So it's one thing if a game didn't sell very many copies, or not very many copies were printed, then it's supply and demand. There's not a lot out there, so you might have to pay more to get your hands on a copy. But there has got to be like a literal sea of Breath of the Wild copies for Nintendo Switch out in this world. And it's not a supply and demand thing. So why is this game still $40 after all this time? Yes, it's a great game, but so are a lot of other games that are way cheaper.
It's funny that I was actually, as I said, I was in Peoria. I went to Mega Replay because I always go and look at the Wii U section because I am a Wii U collector. Since I own one, I like to try and get as many of the good games in my catalog. And I noticed that Breath of the Wild for Wii U, you can get it for about $20, which I mean is still, still kind of high, but a way steeper discount than what we got going right now.
Yeah.
With the Switch.
Yeah. Anyway, don't have a whole lot on this topic, but that was just kind of my rant. I've yet to pick up a Nintendo Switch, and I know a lot of people who are physical game collectors love the Switch because there are so many great games on the console, including exclusives to it, or re-releases of older games, or just indie games. It's a great place to build a collection. But
yeah,
I'm also really cheap at heart, and I can't imagine myself trying to build a Switch collection, at least not with the current prices.
Yeah, a good segue into our next topic. My buddy, I really wanted that Skyward Sword remake that they put onto the Switch.
Oh yeah.
And they've just been keeping that retail at $60, and I've not seen it budge. Like,
what?
It's like, this is a Skyward Sword remake. Like, this is a, it is an older game still at heart. Like, it's not anything. Yeah, I'm interested to see what it is now when you look it up. But while you're doing that,
for a used copy, a complete used copy, the average price is $38.50.
Okay.
So,
which still, it's a while it is a remake, it's still a fairly old game on its own. But the only reason like I got it was because we did one of those buy one get ones at GameStop. I was like, he basically got a game that he wanted, I got a game that I wanted, and we split the cost down the middle. And then I mean, that was the only way it was gonna. I'm like, otherwise, like, I'm never buying this.
All right. So speaking of buy one get one, I think you were telling me that GameStop's doing another one of those buy one get one deals, which they do every couple of weeks. But it's not, as much as I appreciate that, and even sometimes when they do like the buy two get one for free, even that can sometimes be a good deal.
Yeah.
But you and I have been kind of looking underneath the surface and noticing a little bit of shadiness going on with these sales, which is not uncommon. A lot of retail stores, there's some smoke and mirrors behind their sales.
But this in particular, I think, is getting a bit outrageous for a few reasons. So, as we said, GameStop has a lot of buy one, get one, or buy two, get one. And while it's a great deal on the surface, I was actually messing around with my cart and like seeing if I wanted to buy a couple games to get one free, and just I couldn't add up to get to the free shipping aspect, and I didn't know what it was at that point, and come to find out, they have raised that free shipping threshold to now $79, which I think is one, a very random number, and two, a very high number for people that buy, one game or a couple games. Like, I feel like it would be very hard to reach that number with using the deals that they give you available. So essentially, whatever deal you have, you're automatically adding an $8 shipping charge to every order you have. In addition to that, they give you the option to pick it up in store, which I think, hey, that's great. There's GameStop still open everywhere. I would love to just drop by and pick up these games in store and avoid that shipping charge. Well, I think there's a bit of shady business practice going on with that as well, because no matter what game it is, whether it's new or used or whatever, they always say that the game is not available in any store. And I look at every store in the Chicagoland area. There's so many of them.
Yeah, you telling me in all of Chicago, not one GameStop has these games in stock.
And I'm not looking for niche games. Like, they're very popular games that should have many copies of them, or at least a few at one location of the many in Chicago.
Yeah. And I'll say I've run into the same thing. Going on their website, especially during these buy one get one free deals, I'll search and it'll always tell me, yeah, no stores nearby have this. And then I will go to the GameStop by my house that same week, and lo and behold, what's on the shelf? The game they claim they don't have in stock. And just to make sure I'm not crazy, I'll look it up on my phone and be like, maybe somebody just traded one in since yesterday when I looked it up. And it will still say it's not in stock at this store. And here it is. I'm holding it in my hand. It's clearly in stock. So I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if that's some trickery to get you to order it offline, force you to order on the website, or if it's just that their inventory is just that out of sync at all their stores, which is also a possibility. That could very well be
the case too. Yeah. Yeah, and you were saying, and I didn't know this part, that they kind of are sneaky with those buy one, get ones.
Yes. And another thing I noticed was they will raise the prices of the games during their buy one, get one free sales. So same thing, I check GameStop online frequently for deals. So one week I'll be looking at it and all these games will be like super cheap, $7.99 or whatever. And then when they do their buy one, get one free sale, all of a sudden these games are now $14.99. So you're essentially you're maybe only really saving $1. Because if two games were $7.99 and now they're both $14.99, yeah, you're saving like $2 during this buy one, get one free deal. You're not really buying one and getting one free.
It's like it's a bad cycle of bad business practice, because while us as consumers wanted to shop online and we were totally fine with going into the store and picking up the games, for whatever reason, the shipping charge is there. They raise the threshold. We can't do any of that. But if we just want to go and do the in-store experience, from what we talked about in the last episode, there are not very good conditions in these GameStops. A lot of times these employees are already overwhelmed. So that experience isn't even a good experience, because if we just want to go in and pick up games without having to do the shipping charge or anything else, I mean, these employees are overwhelmed. They may not be aware of any deals. You could run into instances where you ran into, Mike, where like prices are different than what you show online compared to what it is in the store. I mean, it just kind of goes to show why GameStop is where it is, unfortunately.
Yeah, absolutely. And going back to them raising the free shipping, it used to be $35. It used to be as long as you bought $35 worth of games or more, you got free shipping. And now Crazy. They have more than doubled that, which is crazy, especially in a world where Amazon exists and like companies are not necessarily doing away with shipping costs, but they're really keeping it the minimum or faking free shipping, or even like ordering stuff off off eBay. Like, shipping charges are very low, and we've all been spoiled by it. So to have to pay for shipping, like, I totally sound like spoiled guy here, but I scoff at having to pay for shipping. Like, just lie to me. Just charge more for it and tell me the shipping's free. Like,
right.
Psychologically, I'll take it better.
I think well, I'll wrap this up with this, but you could combat that $7.99 shipping charge if you're a pro member like I am. I don't know when I became a pro member, but I guess I still am. But every month they give you a $5. They give you a $5 coupon just to use on whatever.
Yeah.
But with these $5 coupons, whenever I try to pair them with these buy one get one deals or like really just anything, it never works unless it's just like a full price game that I'm paying for. So it's like, what is the point of like all the restrictions on this $5 coupon if I can't even use it to help me combat shipping or whatever?
Oh, interesting. Because, yeah, one time I went in there and the cashier was trying to sell me the pro membership. And they're like, you'll get $5 credit every month. But, yeah, they didn't...
It's not a real credit.
Yeah, they didn't disclose to me that it doesn't apply to sale items, which is all I ever buy. So, that would be completely useless to me. Interesting. All right, well, I don't know. You got anything else to cover on this topic?
No, just frustrating because like I've actually gotten some pretty good deals on GameStop throughout the years, shopping online and getting them shipped to me, and some of those buy one get one, buy two get one, like whatever it is, like they were good at a time. It's kind of sad that it's going away.
Yeah. All right. Anyway, we're gonna flip the script here. Instead of I almost skipped one of our main topics. So, you and I are going to choose what the next game is that the other person is going to play. And we'll cover it in our next episode. And Mitch, I scoured your Steam list to see what games you have that you've never played. And I landed on Psychonauts. So I'm requesting that you install and play Psychonauts, the 2005 original game, from your Steam list, and let me know if you like it.
I'm happy with this choice because I've seen the second one that they just recently came out with on Game Pass, but I've been hesitant to go at it because I wanted to play the first one. So this is going to force me to get into that, and I'm excited to. I did install it today as well, so I'm ready to go.
All right, perfect. And I made sure it had controller support because a lot of those older mid-2000 games, they're iffy with the controller support. Sometimes they have it, sometimes they don't on PC. And especially a game like a platformer, I just feel like that would be horrible to play with keyboard and mouse. So you're good to go. You should be able to play it in the comfort of your living room or wherever with a controller.
The comfort of my office chair here that I'm sitting in currently.
Oh, yeah. Just kick it back, grab that Xbox controller, and go through it.
Yeah, I did the same for you, and I scoured your Steam library first, and while there were some options on there, I did notice that you had played the first two games of this series, and what I landed on is Shadow Warrior 3, and that is actually on Game Pass, which good for you that you have that subscription, easy install, and you can also go at it wherever you want to play.
Yep, good choice. So, like you said, I did play Shadow Warrior 1. Well, let me reiterate. I played Shadow Warrior 1, the remake, because Shadow Warrior was originally a much older first-person shooter game that released on PC back in the 90s. I never played the original version, but I did play the remake, and I did play Shadow Warrior 2. And what interests me about the series is that both Shadow Warrior 1, 2, and 3 are completely different games. So the first game was a very linear first-person shooter. It almost kind of reminded me like Serious Sam or something like that, where you're just going through these levels. They're just throwing a million enemies at you, and you're either chopping them up with your samurai sword or blowing through them with whatever guns you have. It was kind of like a mindless shooter, but it was fun. And then Shadow Warrior 2 was totally a Borderlands clone. So they added co-op to it, and it was a looter shooter.
Wow.
And that one, I don't know, it was a cool game, but I just couldn't quite get into it. All the games have really beautiful graphics and they're very colorful, but Shadow Warrior 2 almost had like too much going on, where it was just like hurt my eyes. It was hard to look at. There's just so much detail and so many different colors. It was just hard to make out anything or like figure out where you were in the level. Like there was, I don't know, it was like sensory overload.
Sure.
But me and my buddy played some of that and we had fun with it. In Shadow Warrior 3, they've gotten rid of the co-op, which is sad, but they've gone back to, I think, a more linear single-player game, and I think it's more of kind of like a Doom clone as far as like the newer Dooms. So,
yeah, and it's one that I looked at and I really want to give it a try. So I'm gonna let you go for it first and let me know your thoughts.
All right, I'll give you the recommendation.
Great,
yeah.
though.
All right, cool. So yeah, next episode we'll report back on the game selections.
Yep.
All right, so the last thing I want to go over is I've been trying to sell some stuff on Facebook Marketplace. And some of it is games. I mean, my video game collection is bursting at the seams. I'm never going to play it all. It's time to sell off some of the stuff. And I've also sold a few other things on Facebook Marketplace. But, man, and I used to sell stuff on Craigslist. And I think I sold some stuff on OfferUp too. And I don't know if I'm just remembering incorrectly, but I don't remember selling stuff being such a headache as it is on Facebook Marketplace. So first of all, if I put something on Facebook Marketplace, I'm just trying to get rid of it. So I'm selling it at a steep discount. Just anybody. Come give me $10. Just take this stuff. I don't need anymore. But I will list stuff and I will get 100 people hitting me up. And it always starts the same. It's always like, hey, is this still available? And I always respond the same. I say, yes, it's still available. When do you want to get it? And then I just never hear anything again. And I'm like, why are all these people reaching out to me if they have no intention of buying this? And I'm not talking about it happening once or twice. Like, the majority of people do this. Like, 1 out of every 100 people actually replies and comes and buys whatever I'm selling. Like, I get it. You might be a window shopper. You might go on Facebook Marketplace, look at all the cool stuff with no intention of ever buying it. But why would you even bother to message me if you have no intention on buying it? So it's just been frustrating, man. It's just, it's a game of patience, and it's like a numbers game. It's like a dating app. It's like 1 out of every 100 person is actually going to be compatible with this Facebook Marketplace sale.
That's a great way to compare it.
But, oh, man. I don't know. Have you ever tried selling anything on Facebook Marketplace? Or the other platforms as well?
Yeah, I've used Facebook Marketplace, OfferUp, and I think Let Go is another one that same experience. They're all not great. Facebook Marketplace, though, I think while it's probably the most popular right now, it is by far the worst experience that I've had as well. I don't know if you ran into this, though, because I was just moving, actually, as we've talked about in previous pods, and I was trying to get rid of everything that I didn't need anymore. I was getting rid of like couches and stuff that I was going to recycle and I was going to get rid of and get some new furniture. It came down to where I literally had to start giving stuff away for free because nobody serious was coming and like giving me any sort of real feedback or not responding to me or stuff like that. And eventually I did get rid of everything, but it was a full-time job almost. Like, thankfully I had some PTO to move because I'm like on my phone, like trying to get people to get this for weeks at some points. I'm like, I am moving soon. Like, I need this gone.
Yeah.
So yeah, a bad experience, but I don't know if you ran into this too. There are a lot of bots on it too, I want to say. It's just people, because I see the same response from some people. Like, it'll be like, hey, is this available? I'll say, yeah. And then the next one will be like, great, my uncle will come and get it later or something like that. And I see the same thing of my uncle's coming to get it later. like 4 or 5 times. Like, not everybody's uncle is coming to get this stuff. Like, it seems very odd that it's your uncle too.
Yeah, that's weird. I have not encountered any of that, but I do every time somebody reaches out to me, before I even respond, I look at their profile and just make sure it's like, okay, does this look like a real person? How old is their profile? I do try to see if it might be a bot before I even bother responding.
I don't understand bots with buying though, because like they're the ones that are supposed to, like, for selling maybe, because maybe they're trying to have you give them money or something.
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to tell, and it's probably not wise to go all the way through the motions of the scam to figure out what their end game is.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, that's my experience too. I know other people that have probably had similar experiences. I've had some wins with buying and whatnot, but yeah, it's my dad. Shout out to my dad. He loves Facebook Marketplace, and he's always venturing out getting some musical equipment or something.
Nice.
But yeah, he's gotten some good stuff. But from my overall experience, has not been great.
Maybe in the smaller cities, it's not as big of an issue. But yeah, and
That could definitely be the case.
yeah, maybe people are more honest and more about their business on there, because it should be a simple process. Hey, this still available? Yeah, it is. When you want to come get it? I'll get it Tuesday. Okay, I'll meet with you on Tuesday. Meet with you on Tuesday. Here's the cash. Give me the thing. We're done. That's it. It's not a complicated process, people.
In the buying role, like, I've never been a person that's like ghosted somebody, like, when I have told them I am interested in wanting to buy it. Like,
yeah, same here.
Seems odd.
If I'm reaching out to you, it's because I actually want it and I intend to come buy it.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. It's a goofy world out there.
That it is.
All right, man. I think that about does it for our episode. Anything else you wanted to touch on before we sign off?
No, happy to be back. Happy to be back in the routine, churning out some podcasts, giving some content. Thanks everybody for viewing, sticking with us. It's we're just continually having fun.
Yeah. All right. You can find all our episodes on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and our social media platforms are. Mitch, you want to let them know what those are?
Yep, our Twitter is at The Hills Are Silent. Our Instagram is Instagram.com/Hills Are Silent. Our TikTok is at The Hills Are Silent Podcast. Our YouTube, again, is at The Hills Are Silent. If you have any questions, comments, feedback, game recommendations, anything at all, hit our email inbox, hillsaresilent@gmail.com. We'll catch you in the next episode.